record for posterity.
Okay, so you don't need to
No,
look on
just
mine.
for
Okay,
the
all right.
All right, the July 27th meeting of the Parks Committee will come to order, and we'll note Alder Campbell, Alder Eck, Alder Weary are present, Alder Stoyer is excused. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Eck, second by Campbell to
I feel like
approve.
we're gonna be doing a lot
Any
of
changes? Those in favor?
Got it.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we back out and join
So he
in?
will let you log in
All
if
right.
you'd like to wait for him. Otherwise
Okay.
you can keep going.
We'll just plow ahead until you're ready, and then you can tell us, James. So those in favor of the agenda?
Oh,
Aye.
aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes, C.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Eck,
Second.
second by Campbell. Any changes there? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Are we in?
You should be able to log in now.
Okay, back it out. Although Alder Campbell won't be able to because he doesn't have his
Yeah, I might be able to.
municipal
now.
present and voting. Oh,
I went from not having access to now I'm the system administrator for
Wow.
the entire city. So if you guys need anything,
Yes.
When you get the
let me know.
pay
No.
raise?
yeah, you got a pay
Do
raise.
we get a bump? Include
Good.
yourself.
Good, James?
It says two are present, so but it's all we.
I had to grab my personal computer,
Okay.
so
So
Mark
we're good
it as
then.
present.
I'm waiting for the,
Under regular business, number one, consideration with possible action on the request by the Green Bay Public Works Department to install a stormwater management pond and other stormwater facilities at Seymour Park to assist with neighborhood flooding issues. Director.
So as many of you are aware, there is significant flooding issues in the Seymour Park neighborhood whenever there's a large storm event. So Public Works has done a lot of research into this issue, and they've determined that the most cost-effective way to help alleviate some of the flooding in the neighborhood is to construct a stormwater facility at Seymour Park. So there is a very active neighborhood association at this park, so we knew that if we were to propose a facility like this, we wanted to get some input from the neighborhood association before we proceeded any further. So park staff, public works staff, the mayor, and Alder Johnson met with the neighborhood association back in December, and we sent out letters to over 70 residents adjacent to the park. So I think it was within a 200-foot radius of the park. And we invited them to the meeting to discuss the potential of using the open space in the park for stormwater management. Only about 6 residents showed up at that meeting, but it was a very good meeting and they provided a lot of valuable input. So at that meeting, 2 concepts were presented. Both concepts were very similar to the concept that you see attached to the agenda packet, in the fact that there was a large pond on the west side, a smaller pond on the east side, and then a greenway with kind of a drainage ditch connecting the 2 ponds in both locations. What was different between the 2 concepts was kind of the shape of the ponds and how people interacted with the ponds. For some of them, you could get close up and personal because there were boardwalks that actually went through the ponds. There was other ones where you had to kind of step off the perimeter and you couldn't get real close to the ponds. So, but other than that, the actual footprints were very much the same to what you see in the concept. So everyone that attended the meeting did agree that flooding was a concern, and it was enough of a concern that what you see in this concept of having a large pond, a smaller pond, and a corridor in the middle was definitely worthwhile if it can help alleviate some of the flooding concerns and offset some of that. So that was the general consensus. There was a lot of debate back and forth as far as what amenities to include, what the shape should be, should people get up close and personal to the ponds or not. And in the end, we took all that input and created the concept that you see in front of you. And our plan is to meet with the neighborhood association on the 9th of next month. We are on their agenda to meet to discuss this topic. But as I stated, there really weren't a lot of concerns at the last meeting, and what we're presenting at this upcoming meeting is very similar to what was presented. Just some of the details have changed a little bit. So we don't really anticipate really a lot of negativity coming out of that meeting. The biggest concern that they addressed is they did not want the public to have easy access to the ponds and interact real closely with it. So that was the one thing we decided when we selected this concept you see in front of you, is we do have a walkway that's right next to the pond, but that walkway is separated by a retaining wall and a railing. So we're actually physically preventing people from accessing that waterway. I do have a graphic here that we unfortunately didn't have in time, ready in time for the agenda packet, but I'll include it in the council agenda packet. And this will be shared with the neighborhood association in 2 weeks. And this just gives you a little bit of the character of what we're trying to accomplish with this pond. So what we don't want to do is just build a standard stormwater pond. We want this to be an amenity for the neighborhood and for the park, and something they can be proud of and have it being an attractive feature. So you can see that, elements that we'd like to include in this concept, which you really can't see in the concept itself, would be to incorporate elements such as an open shelter with a green roof, interpretive signing, decorative native plantings, boulders, sculptures, and then a water feature in the pond. And then one added benefit that the ponds will create is there is a request by the neighborhood association to move the basketball courts, because right now they're kind of hidden behind the shelter in the location where the pond is currently shown. So that basketball court will have to be relocated to a different location within the park if this pond is built as shown in the concept. And the neighborhood, I recently met with them to talk about playgrounds, and they were very excited with the location shown in this concept when I verbally told them what we were going to present. So the reason that there's a swale and kind of a greenway connecting the two ponds is that it not only provides extra storage capacity for holding water in a big storm event, but it also recreates the image or the historic element of the slough that used to run through that park before that area was developed. So it's conceptually kind of getting back to its origins. And then that slough concept or greenway concept will actually go beyond this site and hopefully connect to the shipyard at some point in the future. So whenever there's a development within that corridor, we're going to try to recreate that slough to create that concept and carry it over beyond the footprint of this park. So that being said, I asked Matt Heckenweibel to attend to answer any questions you might have on the reasons why Seymour Park was selected as the best location and the benefits from a stormwater management standpoint. So I don't know if you have any detailed questions such as that for Matt? But
I just
if so,
wanna-
you can raise.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, no.
Is that, I can't read the street names, they're all fuzzed out. Is that Ashland that is
Yep.
between the two?
Correct.
Okay, all
Ashland
right, that's what I
cuts
thought.
between the two.
Okay.
The one thing I do want to note in the concept is, in the two concepts we originally showed with the neighborhood, there was kind of a smaller pond with standing water on the far right-hand side that would be to the east of Ashland. After talking through with our consultant, McMahon, we decided to eliminate that as a wet pond. So that'll be a dry pond instead. So that is one concept that hasn't been discussed with the neighborhood yet, but I think they're going to be happy because, their biggest concern was having standing water in the park, and this alleviates some of the standing water that we showed in the other two concepts.
Any questions?
Um,
Yeah, no?
So the dry pond, because I'm looking at this, and there's not a separation between the people and the dry pond, but it's just the wet pond, right? As far as putting up the barrier, the retaining wall, is that?
Correct. So in this concept where you see the wet pond, we have those two little circle viewing areas.
Okay.
There will be a railing around those circle areas and then connecting those two. So, that walkway will be slightly raised with a retaining wall as shown in this photograph with an ornamental rail so that people can get close to it from a viewing standpoint, but they won't actually be able to enter the water unless they jump over the railing in the event, which we don't anticipate that really happening very often.
Is that designated walkway then that crosses there with one of them press the button deals?
There is currently one on site already. So last year we used some community development block grant funding, and we actually improved the crossing on Ashland. So they they installed flashing beacon lights, and we actually moved the crossing to the location shown on this map. What used to actually be south, kind of where Seymour Court is shown on this plan. We actually moved that crossing a little bit further north because it was a more visible crossing and it was a safer crossing by moving it. So that crossing has already been improved.
Maybe Dan or Matt, either one, what's our budget looking like for this? I think we set some money aside, right, earlier in the year?
Correct. I think that ARPA funds were allocated, I think $1 million if I recall, but I could have that.
Within our capital improvement program, we set aside $2 million for the easterly pond, and out of that $2 million, $1 million is actually going to be subsidized with ARPA funds. And that was assuming it was going to be a wet pond. Since we've gone to a dry pond now, the overall budget is anticipated to be slightly less than that, and we haven't budgeted for the westerly pond yet.
Because the east side one is the small one, right, the dry?
Correct. And the reason why we are budgeting it as two different projects is in 2021, we reconstructed South Maple. And so the storm sewer infrastructure is in place to feed that pond and then take the water away. Where in 2022, we were looking at trying to do the infrastructure to help feed the westerly pond, and due to budgeting constraints, we pulled those projects out of this year's capital improvement. So we're hoping those will go in for next year.
Okay. So as far as, when do you look at starting this year yet, or next spring?
The anticipation is that it would be under construction now.
Because it's just, haven't done yesterday.
Well, this project has been out there. We actually hired McMahon back in 2016 to look at how the flooding occurs within this area. And then in summer of 2020, we started them refining what they found in their 2016 study and refining it into a concept that we've then presented, as Dan mentioned, to the neighborhood association, back and forth, and this is where we're at today. So they haven't completed any final design, so we're still a little ways out, but I'd like to be under construction yet this year.
And that's just the eastern part of
Just
Ashland,
the
right?
easterly
Okay.
part. And then it's a dry pond. What does that mean? As the storm sewer fills up with water, instead of flooding the road, it's going to flood this pond. So the water level will come up, sit there until the storm sewer can catch up, and then it'll come back down. In its dry state, we're going to be looking at a native type vegetation. So it'll be prairie settings. The anticipation is that it will not be a mud hole. Because if we went with a turf grass and water over a long period of time, doesn't react well, the natives will help infiltrate and absorb that water.
And there's a chance to look very nice. It's interesting that if you look at the old pictures, from years ago, that the slough was there. Now we're going back to it. So I don't know what that saying is. What was once old is new again.
Exactly.
It should look nice and if
Maybe
you
it
can
made
tie it
sense,
in.
but, yeah.
And as far as the westerly pond, the wet pond, the easterly side is going to be that retaining wall with the railing. The westerly side is going to be a sloped, gradual slope, vegetated, called native vegetation, which helps prevent the general public from getting down to that water's edge. Again, keeping that buffer. Then if they do make it to the water's edge, there's what's known as a safety shelf underneath the water. So the first 10 feet stays relatively shallow and then it dives off. That safety shelf is also planted with vegetation, again trying to restrict or prohibit the further access of the public. With that being said, anybody who has a desire will get into the deeper sections, but by then, hopefully somebody's gonna say, come on out. So, I mean, it's not meant for physical interaction because it is stormwater runoff. It has some contaminants, dirty water. So the purpose of the pond is also to clean the water prior to discharging out to the Fox River. As such, we get credit for it in our overall DNR stormwater management permit.
Go ahead.
When I'm down in Florida, I see these and they have signs that say beware of alligators, so maybe try that.
Well,
LOL.
since there has
Just-
been alligators captured recently, we could put those signs up if Ben and James wants, but, or
It's
we could
just
say
something I never
piranhas, but.
I do have a serious question, that was just a joke. It says abandoned storm sewers. I just want to try to understand what that means.
What that means is there's an existing storm sewer there. We're gonna reroute the storm sewer system. So instead of digging that up, what happens is you dig up one end, you dig up the other, and you fill it in with a concrete slurry. So we abandon it. By filling it in with a slurry or sand or something. If that pipe breaks or somebody comes across it and a hole gets into it, it's not going to create a sinkhole. And by doing that, it saves time, money, but it's no longer in service.
Okay, that's what I thought, but then you were talking about how when the storm sewer catches up with the dry pond, so that I thought, well, maybe I'm misunderstanding that, so you're gonna have a different storm sewer.
So this is one aspect of a multi-phase project. By doing nothing, I'm assuming that you know how Ashland Avenue floods near Seymour Park, Shawano Avenue near the fire department, South Maple on the east side, South Broadway a little further down. The McMahon study from 2016 made a bunch of proposals by upgrading a lift station that was located at Howard and Pearl, by upsizing the storm sewers going down Howard Street and further inland. It also suggested putting in these two stormwater facilities, one on the east side, one on the west. By doing all of these upgrades, we significantly reduce the flooding, not only at our current design storm, which is a 10-year design storm, but we actually see significant improvements for the larger intense storms of the 25 and 100. Will we still see some flooding? Unfortunately, yes, but not to the 18 inches in some cases that we have seen out there. It might be down to 6 inches, but that's over a course of time and money. So this is, again, another step phase within the overall improvement of that drainage basin. So we've done other projects throughout the city. This is just one more of these projects that we're looking at.
Thanks, Matt. Any other questions, Alder Rank, Alder Campbell?
Do we have any other fancier pools like this with an island gazebo in them around town?
With all these amenities, we don't have anything of this nature, so it will be something new as far as with all these amenities. From a stormwater perspective, I need a glorified hole in the ground. Parks wants to make this a destination, so as people are driving down Ashland Avenue, they see a fountain, they see these new green roof structures, and then joining the waterfront through this imaged slough to continue that historic path. So it is going to be a destination, so.
Seymour Central Park? Like, maybe we can make an ice skating rink in winter?
Because of the continual moving water, I don't
Just
know if
kidding.
I would utilize the pond for a skating rink.
Joking, but maybe a possibility.
It's
Someday.
been looked at other areas, and because of the influx of stormwater, which could be a little warmer in some cases, it's just like a river or a lake. You have to be wary of the incoming waters.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming the moving water is to help keep mosquitoes from laying eggs and stuff, to keep it moving with the little.
Actually, with
fountains.
a wet pond, you don't have that many low pool stagnant water zones. So mosquitoes really aren't a problem in a stormwater facility. They're going to be looking more for those abandoned tires, low quantity of shallow waters, where it's going to be stagnant for a longer period of time. So this will turn over with every storm event. And then Dan wants to add a fountain, so that'll keep the water moving as well.
So, how many square feet is this?
I don't remember what McMahon said.
I mean, what's the 93.33? Is that cubic? Is that the cubic footage of the pond? Right in the middle of the blue there.
That's the
No,
water.
that's the elevation,
Oh, okay.
vertical
Just wondering, I
elevation.
thought that was a size or something.
Nope. Off the top of my head, I want to say it's 3/4 of an acre of land,
Okay.
and that doesn't include the swale running from the wet pond to Ashland, and then the dry pond is relatively small.
And with the exception of the basketball courts, you can't tell in this graphic, there is nothing else over there. There used to be a practice baseball field, wasn't used in years, we removed it. So right now, it's just mowed turf, that's all it is, and the public doesn't really use that property for anything.
Less to mow.
What's mow?
I think it looks nice.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, motion to.
Just to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Alder Eck, second by Alder Campbell. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Dan. Number 2, consideration of possible action on the approval of a design, construction, and dedication agreement with the Optimist Club of Green Bay for the construction of a concession stand with restrooms at the Finger Road Ball Field Complex.
So for many years, the user groups at the Finger Road Ball Field Complex has been requesting the approval to construct a concession stand with restrooms. The facility as it currently sits consists of a parking lot with 4 ball fields with no buildings on site. We currently have porta potties on site, but there is no concession stand. So the reason that we haven't built anything yet out there is the facility was built on a landfill. So there are very strict guidelines of what can be built out there, and the DNR kind of has final oversight over that. And over the years, although the request has been out there and the DNR has been reviewing the request for many years, they did not allow construction of the building because what they wanted to do was monitor the long-term effects that the ball field construction had on the landfill. And so they were hesitant to allow any additional development until they knew that what was built wasn't going to negatively affect the landfill. So enough time has passed, they've been monitoring it long enough that they've determined it's now safe to allow additional construction on site. And they just made that determination earlier this year. So we would like to move ahead with the construction of the concession stand with restrooms. And the city typically doesn't fund the installation of concession stands because the city doesn't really see the benefit from it financially. So usually the user groups use those concession stands. The profits, or the bulk of the profits, go back towards the user groups to help run their programs and their facilities. So it really doesn't come to the city. So we don't really fund construction of concession stands for that reason. Therefore, we do rely on the user groups to fundraise and actually install the concession stands on the city's behalf. So the last two concession stands we built were at the Ernie Wolf Sports Complex and the East River Optimist Park. And in both of those situations, the city funded and contracted out the installation of the underground utilities to the building, but then the user groups funded for and paid for, hired the contractors, and managed the construction of the building itself. And so that is what we'd like to propose in this situation. So in this particular instance, the agreement is with the Green Bay Optimist Club. They are the ones who are fundraising for this. It's the same group that we worked with for the installation of the concession stand at East River Optimist Park. So it's the same individuals are going to build this second concession stand. They're proposing to build it nearly identical to the one at East River Optimist. We really don't have any concerns with working with that user group. They did a great job the last time. The building design is going to look very similar to the one that they just built, and it's really a cute building, and it was built very well. And so this process does require that the Green Bay Optimist Club does enter into a formal design, construction, and dedication agreement with the city. So we did go through the same process for that last concession stand that they built a few years ago, and we use that as the template for this agreement that's in the agenda packet. Very little change, a few things here and there, but it was very minor. So this agreement outlines the process and the approvals that their group is going to have to go through in order to ensure that the building is constructed to city standards. Items in this contract include the plan review process, permitting process, construction inspections, required insurance that they have to have in order to build it, and then how to select approved contractors. So in addition to hiring the contractor, as I stated, the Optimist Club will be responsible to also manage the construction of the building itself. So Public Works, Parks, and Inspection will all be able to be on site and do annual or regular inspections of it to make sure that it's built properly. So we don't have any problems with that. Once the building is completed, then they would officially dedicate that and donate it to the city. So at that point, it becomes a city facility, and the city is responsible for all ongoing maintenance to that building once the construction is completed and dedicated to the city. So the law department did review this agreement that you see in the agenda packet, as did the Optimist Club, and everyone is in agreement to the terms listed in the agreement. We do have a gentleman here from the Optimist Club. If you have any specific questions for their group, you're more than welcome to open the floor, or you can ask any questions for me.
What would you like, Vinny? Any questions for our guest or for staff?
Does it have to be a question?
No. No?
Comments, questions?
Yeah, comment, sure.
So should we, a motion to open the floor?
Second.
Sure. Motion to open the floor by Alder Eck, second by Alder Campbell. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay,
Come up and just give us your name and address. That'd be great.
sure. My name is Patrick Ryan. I live at 341 Crosswinds Lane here in Green Bay. And I'm a member of this Optimist Club. I've been there about 20 years. Currently, I'm the co-president of the club. And we sponsor a girls softball league, or a series of girls softball league age groups. And in any given week, we have 225 girls, their brothers and sisters, their parents and grandparents out there at this site. You have a small concession stand in a shack, in a storage shack actually, and which of course with no electricity, we actually cart ice in there every day. I think I've probably carted in at least 300 pounds of ice this year so far. We as a club basically take turns manning this concession stand, if you will. Probably the biggest issue for spectators, though, is the fact all of the restroom facilities are just 2 porta potties. So we've got hundreds of little girls and little kids out there, parents, grandparents, and everybody has to use those two porta potties. I think that's a rather inconvenient thing that I hear about almost every time out there. So our club has been mentioned. We built the concession stand at East River Optimist Club, Optimist Park, and that worked out very well. It serves now to support the little leagues that play on those sites. This project's been going on for, well, I'd say at least half of the time that I've been a member of this club. So I can probably answer some of the basic questions, except I'm not familiar with the drawings exactly, but I know what the stand looks like on Law Street, and so I certainly can.
Who would like to go first on the camera?
So I briefly looked over the numbers here. You guys raised $1 million for that, or you
I
financed it?
think the number is 100,000.
100,000.
100,000? Well,
Which
geez,
seems
I'm getting in my
low.
glasses then.
Well, the project leader, Dan Madigan, is rather resourced in finding contractors.
There we go.
So a lot of the materials and some of the labor was donated for that stand.
I was wondering, I thought that seems awfully low.
Yeah, it was a fine bit of fundraising and just making it work, making it all come together.
Sorry, I was just skipping over it, but $1 million was on the heavy side, and
Yeah,
100,000 was like,
100,000.
wow, what a great job.
I know, like, wait a minute,
I went
did I
from one
miss
thing
it?
to the other there. so
Palatial.
That's
I hope
okay.
that isn't the fluctuation of inflation, you know? Going back the other way, maybe, so,
Yeah.
nice job. I wanted to commend you on that.
Oh,
I know
okay.
my kids all played with Optimus,
thank you.
you know, and everything like that. How many members are in your group?
In the club, I think we have about just over 40 members in the club right now. The club itself is, we meet over at St. Brendan's on Wednesdays, and the club is actually the oldest Optimist club in the area. We will celebrate our 75th anniversary later this year, so it's,
So Dan.
The Dan Madigan is-
Fico Dan?
yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, he was the immediate past president of the club, and he was sort of the leader of the Little League Baseball. He was the Little League Baseball commissioner for some time, and under his leadership, did the concession stand with lights and scoreboards on those fields. So it's been
Any other
very
questions?
interesting.
No, I do want to commend you as well. I think it's awesome, and I appreciate what you're doing. Like,
Thank
you
you.
know, it's a
Thank you.
benefit for the city, and
Yeah, it's fun being out there. I work in the concession stand at least one night a week, and been doing this for about 10 years. And it is really fun to see the kids having a good time, and the parents and grandparents having a good time too out there. It's a really huge community resource for these girls that play there. And there are other leagues that play there too. There are tournaments in the spring, and I think Preble also plays on one of those fields too. So it's a
Go ahead.
huge.
So my daughter was involved in the, I'm gonna say Optimist, is that considered the Green Bay League always, or is the Optimist separate from it?
Well, this particular league is on the east side.
Yeah. I mean, my
Primarily.
daughter's a little grown up now, I
Okay.
mean, they played like at Preble Park, is it a
Okay.
rotating thing? or
Yeah,
is it just
I'm
a
not sure
one?
where they played before this.
Oh.
They were on Finger Road. I think they were playing on Emily Street before
Oh.
that. I wasn't directly involved in.
Well, definitely that area is developing, and it's nice to see that corner that you always kind of wondered what was going on there someday, you
On
know?
that hill, yes.
So, nice job.
Yeah, I'll concur
And it's
also.
the east side.
Yeah, it
These
is.
guys are west side. So it's nice to see something.
Well, for the east side, I guess. It's very nice.
Come on.
we need to input on how to raise money for the west side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a few
No, you did
baseball fences.
Excellent job, without your groups and groups like you.
Well, thank you.
I'm
And
sure you're
actually,
doing a good job, too.
I will pass it on because I only have a minimal amount of credited this, I think it's mostly Dan Madigan and a couple other people in the club that have put this all together.
It's half of what makes it work. I mean, we have the beautiful facility, but unless you have
Mhm.
the bathrooms and the concessions, I've been to a lot of baseball and soccer tournaments, and
Mhm.
you need both of them to be clicking on all cylinders. So
Right.
this will be. Are you looking at this fall building?
Well, we're hoping to get started
So
this
spring
fall.
will be
Yes, so
awesome.
we can, have a brick and mortar facility next year for the league play.
Thank you.
Okay,
Very
you're
awesome.
welcome.
Thank you,
Motion to
yes.
close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alder Eck, second by Alder Campbell to close the floor. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. What are your wishes?
Could you repeat the name? We didn't catch your name for the record.
I'm Patrick Ryan, R-Y-A-N, and I live at 341 Crosswinds Lane.
Thank you.
What are your wishes, committee? What would you like to do?
For what?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Oh,
Motion by
okay.
Alder Campbell.
I thought we did. I guess we closed the floor. Second.
Second by Alder Eck. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Everything goes to council next week. Everything we do today goes to council for final discussion and up or down vote on Tuesday.
Okay,
Thank you.
Meet Dan by dinner or something that night. Never show up. Just kidding.
Number 3, consideration with possible action on approving the Parks, Rec, and Forestry Department's Park and Greenway encroachment policy.
So this is
5-yard penalty for encroachment.
This has been an ongoing issue for decades. So the Parks Department estimates that there's a minimum of 150 property owners that are encroaching into park property without proper approval to do so. So there are varying degrees of the encroachment, and they do occur in our parks, along trails, and within our greenways. So landscape violations include mowing lawns on city property, installing turf grass, so removing the natural vegetation and installing turf grass so that it looks like a yard, planting trees, trimming vegetation, and installing vegetable and ornamental gardens. There's also many cases where adjacent landowners use parkland to store materials such as firewood, trailers, and other building materials. And finally, many owners have even gone so far as installing fire pits, homemade bridges across the creeks, fencing, sheds, playgrounds, trellises, and even gazebos and other larger structures. So this is not a small issue within our city. This is a fairly significant issue. There are several reasons that this really isn't in the city's best interest to continue to allow this to happen. So park staff does have significant concerns as it relates to public use of these encroachment areas. So there's many cases where the public property just doesn't appear to be public anymore. Many property owners have turned the natural areas that should be enjoyed by all into an extension of their backyards. So there's even several, as I mentioned, there's even several adjacent owners that have gone so far as to fence off these backyard encroachment areas to physically make them private property areas. So in these situations, the public doesn't even use these spaces because they fear of trespassing on private property, even though this is considered public land. And through this process, the public does lose the enjoyment of these spaces because there are no passive walking opportunities. They're eliminated or reduced whenever this happens. And the other reason for considering implementing this policy is to protect the greenways, not only for protecting environmental ecosystems, but more importantly, to help control flooding within the neighborhoods. So the benefits to maintaining a natural landscape planting over turf grass include filtering the water before it actually enters the waterway. It provides a recharge of the groundwater system. It helps reduce flooding, and the deep root systems help to keep the soil in place and prevent erosion. And then finally, it provides important migration corridors for the wildlife when you have a natural habitat versus a lawn. So the last time this issue was discussed with the Parks Committee was in April of 2007. The motion was made to have the inspection department find the violations of encroachment by the public on public parks and greenways, cite the property owners, and if they don't remove it in 2 weeks, remove it and bill them with full enforcement and no appeals. This includes not allowing the public to mow greenways. So that was actually the motion that went to city council, and they approved that motion in 2007. Now, for whatever reason, this motion was never followed through by city staff. And unfortunately, I don't have any background information as far as why it wasn't followed through. But I am 100% sure that that process never happened, and inspection really did not get involved with finding a solution to this issue. But again, I wasn't involved with it, so I don't really know the reason and the justification behind it. I just know the motion was made. Ever since I've been involved with the issue, we've only dealt with these on a complaint basis, and only when the complaint is made by a member of the public. This really isn't the best way to deal with these issues, as every time we try to enforce a complaint, the owners can clearly see that their neighbors are doing the exact same thing, and they're not having any enforcement to stop the neighbors from doing it. So it really needs to be a consistent enforcement policy throughout the entire city instead of a case-by-case basis if we really want to, find a solution to this issue. So the policy as written, it states that all homeowners and business owners that have adjacent property to city property will receive a letter with instructions that if they're encroaching on city property, they'll have 30 days to rectify the situation. This would go out to all property owners adjacent to park property, whether or not they're encroaching or not. So this puts it on the landowner to determine whether or not they're causing a problem. Any homeowner or business that does not comply will receive an inspection fee, and a follow-up letter will be submitted requesting that they rectify the situation. And then every 2 weeks, we'll follow up with another inspection. And every 2 weeks, we'll submit an inspection fee to the homeowners that aren't complying and a follow-up letter requesting that they comply. If it gets to the point where there's multiple fees that are being ignored, we'll kind of review it with the law department on a case-by-case basis, and we'll either continue with that fee system or take a different approach. But it'll be a case-by-case basis with the law department involved with it. This is the same process that the inspection department currently uses when following up with compliancy issues. And they use software to track the process and notify the residents. So in this situation, the Parks Department will use the exact same software the inspection department uses and follow the same processes that they use when they're following up with similar complaints that are, relating to other issues, compliancy issues within the city. Because this issue is so extensive, it could take several years before we're able to inspect and review for compliancy, because we don't have a dedicated staff member who can do this full time. So we're just going to have to whittle away with it over time, and eventually we will get to all of these properties. So as time permits, what we'll do is we'll focus on the most problematic areas first, and we'll slowly get to all of them. Per this policy, what we'll do is we'll put together a report, and we'll report it out twice a year to the Parks Committee, stating which park areas we focused on for the last 6 months and which ones we're going to focus on for the next 6 months, so that the alders are aware of which property owners are going to be contacted, and it'll give them a kind of a heads up in case they get some calls from some concerned citizens. So this policy will affect all alders in all districts. It's such an extensive issue. And I'm pretty confident that homeowners, several will get upset when they get the initial letter and they will contact their alders. But I'm hoping that if we take a consistent policy approach throughout the entire city, that these conversations with the homeowners and the businesses should go much smoother. If we're taking a consistent approach versus how we've been handling it. So I guess that being said, that's my brief summary of the policy and the reasoning behind it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My comments will be, it looks great, well written. I wish I could say I remember voting on it back in 2007, but I don't, so too long ago, but it was at the council.
So would that be media enforcement?
Excuse me?
Immediate enforcement then, when did this kick in?
Yeah, so what we would do, like I said, is we would start out with just a few areas that are most problematic, and we'll focus on those. So we'll send an initial letter to all homeowners adjacent to it, and then we'll follow up with an inspection a month later. So 1 month later, everyone who complies, nothing will happen. They won't get an inspection fee because they're complying with the regulations, the encroachment issues. Anybody who is not complying will be sent an inspection fee, and they'll be sent a second letter explaining why they received the fee and what they need to do to stop the fees from recurring every 2 weeks.
I think that's pretty fair.
You tell Kim, all day.
A couple things.
You get one.
I get one at a time.
No.
Why do we have to approve it if it's been approved?
Technically, we don't have a policy, and what was approved back in 2007 is to have the inspection department tackle this.
Okay.
You know, we've met with the inspection department. They don't have adequate staffing to really tackle this initiative.
Oh, so we're just
So as a
for-
parks department, we are willing to tackle this with the staffing we currently have and whittle away with it over time. The one thing I do want to mention to you, which, you know, I guess you just have to keep in mind as you're reviewing the complaints as they come in, is we get complaints from the general public who don't want this encroachment to happen. And those individuals probably won't be calling you, they call us with the complaints. So for everyone who complains that we're trying to enforce the encroachment issues, you're getting other people who are saying that's a good thing because we want to have that property back for public usage and have it go back to natural greenway situations instead of mowed turf. So I just wanted to point that out, that there are residents who are vocal about this and they do contact us on a regular basis. Like I said, that's how we've been dealing with it to date, is complaints from an adjacent resident who is saying, look, I'm not creeping in, but my neighbor is, you have to do something about it. Or I'm seeing more and more people doing it on the whole block, you know, let's take care of this. So we're getting complaints both ways, people who don't want to fix it and also people who want it fixed.
Well, so I'm going to give you an example so that I understand if this would be a problem. On Lombardi and Military, so right on that, in that area, there's somebody who lives on the corner, and she has said to me, the city never mows the lawn, so my husband does it. Is that something that would be considered a violation?
Well,
They have a
I have
fence,
to
it's on
look
the
at
other
that
side.
particular instance to be able to answer it, but I will tell you that when we direct people to stop mowing on city property, a lot of those residents are going to say, well, then you need to mow it. If you're not going to let me mow it, then you need to mow it.
Yeah.
The approach that we're taking with all of these greenways and parks is, these are natural areas, these are greenways, they shouldn't be mowed at all. Just because they've been mowed doesn't mean they should be mowed. And so in these situations, we are going to tell the homeowners, we are not going to mow them and you shouldn't have been mowing them for this long. You've been doing it without our approvals. In that particular instance, it really depends, is that city right of way? I can't answer to that particular instance. I'll tell you,
Well,
if
it
it's a
would be city right-
greenway, if it's considered a greenway that Parks maintains, then no, we wouldn't mow it because it's supposed to be a greenway in a natural area. But that'll
like
be
a
the
ditch.
biggest complaint.
Okay. All right, well, because it sounded like it had been mowed by the city, but then they weren't. So then they started doing it, and they just thought they were helping out the city. So I think part of it is education, and so people understand some of it. I mean, obviously, when you build a gazebo on park property, that seems pretty obvious not to do that. But this case, what I'm referring to would be explaining, you know, they're trying to help the city. And their rights.
And as part of the letter, we are going to have the educational component written into the letter as far as the reasoning behind it and why we're taking this action. And, you know, we also, you know, there are going to be property owners who bought the property without knowing that it wasn't their property. And we are going to run into those instances also, because a lot of times these are kind of pre-existing conditions when people buy their houses. So, but that still doesn't make it right. But there are, you know, a handful of property owners that do have approval to do things. There are a couple out there, and, you know, if the request comes forward to allow an exception, we'll work with the law department on a case-by-case basis to see if there's merit to that. Now, we wouldn't just allow it if somebody just wants it mowed, but if there's a hardship or a reason, or that is really a justifiable reason, then it's something that we might consider. But again, that's few and far between. I would say that that is by far going to be the exception, not the norm, with the enforcement of this policy. Because once you allow one person to mow, why can't everyone mow?
Okay.
Alder Campbell, do you have something else? Yeah? No? What are your wishes? What would you like?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alder Eck to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Campbell.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if
Said
you could
second.
ask a
I'm sorry.
question or.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know, I was
That's
having
right.
second thoughts on the question. Go ahead.
Any discussion?
Can I discuss it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would suggest that maybe in the letter there, just kind of propose or explain kind of the whole, somewhat of the history of it, and kind of take a soft approach as far as the explanation go, but tell them, you know, because of liability, and give them a good enough reason so they can't even answer all the questions, so you don't have to waste a whole bunch of time explaining on a one-to-one basis, you know?
Yeah, and keep in mind.
Or we do, or if we do, we'd like to see the copy of the letter so we kind of understand where you're
You know
going
we're
with
getting
it.
it, yeah.
Right.
And we can send you a draft, kind of generic letter before we send it out. Once, you know, we can send that to all of the alders, just so that they get a sense of what the letter will say. And keep in mind that, you know, with your suggestion, which I think is a great suggestion, that first letter is gonna be more informational and the reasoning behind, because it's going to all property owners, not just the ones that are encroaching. And so, you know, we want to make sure that everyone knows the reason why and what the expectations are moving forward.
I mean, since I joined in here, in the game, you know, I think the Facebook page really kind of gets everyone familiar with it too, and I think maybe even that might be part of that too, you know, and saying, wow, so, just like I'm learning right now, you know, it's like, geez, I guess it would raise up a question for other areas that haven't been, that happened to, you know. Never know, someone's gonna start cutting the greenway on Webster Street coming into downtown Green Bay pretty soon.
Any other discussion? No?
No,
Those in favor?
I like the approach though.
Aye.
Second.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Number 4, consideration with possible action on the report of the purchasing manager. A request approval to hire Fortress Fence to repair the Beaver Dam Park backstops at fields 2 and 3 for $22,845.
So what I'll do is I'll give you a brief recap for all 4 of
Yeah.
these items, and then I would recommend you just take a motion for each one individually.
works.
So all of you are aware, there was a major storm in June that caused a considerable amount of damage within our parks. In particular, many trees were blown over, and there was substantial damage to fencing and some playground equipment. So the Parks Department did take a proactive approach and received quotes to repair the fencing, and is requesting approval to hire a fence contractor to complete the necessary repairs. So at last night's Finance Committee, the Parks Department did receive approval to use up to $100,000 of city's contingency fund to cover the costs for this work and also the purchase of materials. And this $100,000 is not just for fencing, but it's to replace the playground equipment and other miscellaneous expenses that, you know, were caused by the storm damage. The city is planning on submitting an insurance claim for all of this damage, and if the claim is approved, then any money we receive from the insurance claim will go back into the contingency fund. So this just allows us to get everything under contract, get things ordered. And as you know, there's a long lead time on fencing equipment and playground equipment, so the sooner we can get this under PO, the better. We did reach out to 5 fence contractors when we went out for quotes for all of this, And for items A and B, only 2 companies submitted quotes, and for items C and D, only 1 company submitted a quote. The other vendors either didn't respond or they stated that they couldn't fit the work into their busy schedules. So technically, items B and D do not require park committee approval because they're under the dollar threshold that needs committee approval. But because this was part of a quote package with multiple locations, the purchasing department requested that we just add those onto the agenda just to be transparent of what we quoted out. And knowing that this is all going to be submitted for an insurance claim. So I can review the specifics of each fence location if you want. Otherwise, you can just go through and review and approve them.
Thanks, Dan. I'm just going to read them off, and then
Okay.
if you have questions, we can do that after. A was request approval to hire Fortress Fence to repair the Beaver Dam Park backstops at fields 2 and 3 for $22,845. B is request approval to hire Fortress Fence to repair the tennis court fencing at Fisk Park for $6,043. C is request approval to hire Fortress Fence to repair the Perkins Park baseball backstop for $28,626. And D is request approval to purchase fence materials from Fortress Fence to repair miscellaneous damaged fencing for $1,502.
I take it Fortress Fence was the only one who did all of them.
Yes.
Any questions on any of those? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderich, second by Alder Campbell to approve. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Number 5, consideration with possible action on the request by TDS Metrocom LLC to approve a utility easement at Kennedy Park.
So, we've discussed this several times. This is some of their TDS Metrocom easements that have recently been approved by this committee. In this situation, they're requesting a utility easement at the northeast corner of Kennedy Park, just off of Eastman Avenue, and they're requesting a 15-foot by 15-foot easement. One of their standard above-ground utility cabinets will be placed within the easement, and I've included a location, a park map showing the approximate location of the easement within the park, along with the actual easement language for your easement, or for your reference, and then some photographs of the site also. I know we've had previous discussions on whether or not TDS Metrocom would fund the installation of artwork wraps on these utility cabinets. So I have had some further discussions since the last Parks Committee, and they have agreed to fund installing art wraps on all of the utility cabinets within the parks and within the street right-of-ways if we want to do them all. So they'll fund up to $2,800 per cabinet to fund hiring an artist to design it, printing it, and installing it. So if the costs are over $2,800 per cabinet, that would fall within the city to pay for it. But we did reach out to our arts coordinator, and she feels that we can easily get it accomplished for that price.
Great opportunity. Great
So
job.
we should be good to go on that. And what we'll do moving forward with the artwork is I will work with the arts coordinator to put out a request for proposals to local artists and get some art pieces selected through the Arts Commission. So we'll actually select the artwork through the Arts Commission. And then we'll proceed with the wraps as soon as that process is in place, and TDS Metrocom will pay those bills as they come in. And I will work with Public Works to determine whether or not they want to do artwork on any of the cabinets within the right-of-ways, and if so, are there selected ones or all of them? We will include those in the proposals to the artists. So, law department reviewed the easement. There's no concerns. Staff reviewed it also. We don't have any concerns, so I would recommend approval.
I know there's quite a few cars that park along there.
I
So,
think that's right.
mostly when they have soccer games there. This is within view of my house here. That would be my only issue. I mean, that's where it's gotta be, but I guess it would be an obstruction for people parking, but what you can do about it, that's where it's gotta be, right?
Yeah, it has to be in close proximity to that. I mean, they
Yeah.
could possibly move it over slightly, but I think it has to go along.
Well, it looks
that
like it's
road.
right in the middle, you know.
The artwork's going to be directed and shaped, looking sternly or pleasantly over a field or
Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, so through the, did you say art coordinator that they would be picking someone for an artist?
There's an arts commission, the
Okay.
City of Green Bay Arts Commission. So I'll work with the arts coordinator, which is a position in the City of Green Bay. So we'll put together the proposal. The proposals will go through the arts commission to actually select the artists and decide where they're going.
I have to check into that. My daughter's an artist. And I'm not just saying that. She's very good. And she does a lot of birds and things like that. So I'll check into that.
Maybe you can get them to say Kennedy Park on it. Just an idea.
Yeah.
Park.
That's true. And what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Eck,
Second.
second by Alder Campbell. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And informational director's report.
I don't have anything specific to add to the director's report, but if you have questions, I can answer.
No, thanks for your help on the mowing at Colburn, and you guys are always very quick to respond and reply to people's concerns, so I appreciate that.
Not getting too far away from Kennedy Park. There's about, I've been told, 30 dead ash trees that are really teeing off people.
Well,
They
all
want
of
cleaned up
our
and
city
cut down.
forester assessments, I'm sure they already have, and they have them scheduled in appropriately.
I didn't
They're
notice
taking them
until
down
I
in
looked
order
over.
of worst to best.
West
so-
to east.
It's not west to east, they're taking down the ones that are, let's say, the most dead. That's
There's
probably not the
bark
correct
falling
terminology, but that's in essence what they're
West to
doing.
east.
The most
There's
dead.
branches
West to
falling
east,
off
yeah.
of
West
them.
to east.
Well, I have two on a street, on Kennedy,
There's a lot of them.
in my district. They came in and took a bunch down in February, and 2 were left up, now they're dead. So it's like, oh, bummer, they didn't do the lower ones. So I don't really have a question, except for, how's the ride? I haven't been out to Bay Beach, have they been installed, the new ones?
So the scrambler has been repaired and is up and running as of the July 4th weekend. The new ride that the Friends of Bay Beach purchased and donated has arrived to Bay Beach, so it is out there as we speak. We already ordered the parts we need to repair it, there's just some new parts that we have to install before we can install the whole ride at our facility. So we're waiting for those parts to arrive. And when they arrive, we'll install it.
I should clarify, I've been there, just not since. But yes, thank you.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to receive and place on file.
Entertain, I was going to say the exact same thing. Motion to receive and place on file.
Sure. Motion by Alder Eck,
Second.
second by Alder Campbell. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next meeting is August 24th, tentatively. Would we like to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Alder Eck, second by
Second.
Alder Campbell to adjourn. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.
There's you're doing, oh gosh, what was the meeting you're doing on